Welcome to a live episode of Survival. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Walt.
What's up, SCS Nation, and welcome to back-to-back live press conference here on a busy Tuesday afternoon, October 1st. By the way, it's Jimmy Carter's 100th birthday, no matter what you think of the guy. It's pretty amazing that guy made it to 100. He's had brain cancer for 9 years. I have no idea what made me just think of that, but happy birthday to him. We are looking at a live feed here of the Busby Law Firm, if you couldn't tell, along with the Ava Law Group with a giant phone number there. They've got good signage as I'm getting a spam call, which is screwing up my screen, but I am back right now. Joined by Tommy Scoville. Tommy Scoville, of course, you guys know him, former federal inmate, got himself in some trouble with some bank robberies, turned his life around. He's got the lifeboat. He helps people with sobriety, but he's been following this case incredibly closely. Here we go. This is Tony Busby. Let's listen in, and then we'll talk about it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tony Busby. I'm a lawyer here in Houston. I'm licensed in Texas and in New York, and I'll introduce other members of our team as they speak. As many of you know, our law firm has been at the forefront of some of the most important litigation in the United States. We like the tough cases. We thrive in the complicated cases. We've handled over the last 25 years some very big and very important cases. I believe that this one may surpass them all. There are many facets to this. The conduct we will describe today occurred over more than 20 years. There are many people and many entities involved. And we're going to follow this evidence wherever it takes us. We will find the silent accomplices. We will expose the enablers who enabled this conduct behind closed doors. We will pursue this matter no matter who the evidence implicates. These brave victims who have stepped forward deserve nothing less. The biggest secret in the entertainment industry that really wasn't a secret at all has finally been revealed to the world. The wall of silence has now been broken, and victims are coming forward. Our team has had at this point more than 3,285 individuals contact us with people claiming to have been victimized by Sean Combs. After vetting, we now represent 120 individuals who intend to bring civil claims in civil court against Sean Diddy Combs, as well as claims against many other individuals and entities that we will name as defendants as we file these individual cases. And you should know, to the extent the clients feel comfortable, we also intend to make these individuals available to the authorities, specifically to the FBI. And you should also know a few of them have already been spoken to by the FBI. Now, before we discuss the nature of the claims and claimants themselves, let me comment on the large volume of calls we have received since our first announcement. Even before the indictment of Sean Combs, we had received a small volume of calls and had screened a handful of cases. After the indictment of Sean Combs and the announcement that we were pursuing these claims, the floodgates opened. People who wouldn't otherwise, for a variety of reasons, are now stepping forward to make their voices heard and to pursue justice. But no, most of these people are scared. They fear backlash in their communities. They fear backlash in their own families. They are afraid of retaliation from the perpetrators and their associates. They are rightly afraid for their own personal safety. I expect that through this process, many powerful people will be exposed. Many dirty secrets will be revealed. We know what we are potentially up against. And as is always the case in situations like this, when a celebrity is involved, people can be downright mean and nasty. You would be shocked at the length fans will go, no matter the evidence to the contrary, to defend celebrities they love. I mean, there's a reason for this word fans. They're fanatics. I've personally already been threatened multiple times on social media. And when I agreed to pursue this, I expected as much. This isn't my first rodeo. But victims who step forward to have their voices heard should not be subjected to that kind of conduct. They should not be targeted. I want to say this, and I want to be clear about it. Although we are vetting each call as stringently as we can, I always start with a mindset that I believe victims. I believe victims because I understand the tremendous courage it takes to step forward. So if you're watching this, please hear me. If you're out there and you have been victimized, you are not alone. There is a great strength in numbers. You can seek redress. You can obtain justice. We can help you, and we will help you. That being said, as stated, we are vetting every call that we receive. We have had to turn away some. For each, we ask for corroboration. For each, we ask for the identity of witnesses. We also have collected pictures, videos, texts. We check venues, we check dates. We want to corroborate that the claims being made have legitimacy and merit. We have on staff now a former detective from the Major Offenders Unit of Houston Police Department who is helping us vet each claim. We're using our common sense. We're being stringent because, as I said, these are not easy cases. They're very tough. The process is hard, and in some cases, the process is very lengthy. These cases are hard to prove. Many times, it's the victim's word against the alleged perpetrator. Each of these victims will no doubt be publicly attacked by the alleged perpetrators, and in some cases, the general public. The feckless and cowardly keyboard warriors love to attack. We know what we're up against. We did not enter this fray blindly. I wish it was my last such fray. I wish this type of behavior wasn't so pervasive, but it is what it is, so we will press on. As I said, our law firms have been retained by 120 individuals at this point to pursue cases in civil court against Sean Diddy Combs. You should know, in this group, it is evenly divided between males and females. There are 60 males and 60 females who have joined us to pursue these claims as plaintiffs. In this group, 62% identify as African American, 30% are white, and the remainder are Hispanic or Asian. The victims are from more than 25 states. The majority are from California, New York, Georgia, and Florida. I don't want to focus on the ages of these victims. When we talk about the ages of the victims when the conduct occurred, it's shocking. Our youngest victim at the time of the occurrence was 9 years old. We have an individual who was 14 years old. We have one who was 15. 25 of the 120 individuals who are plaintiffs in these cases were minors at the time of the acts complained of. The time frame of the acts complained of is very wide. The conduct at issue spans from the years 1991 all the way till this year, 2024. If you wonder why there are so many alleged victims, that's your answer. We're talking about more than 25 years of this type of conduct. Now, although most of the victims who have stepped forward were victimized after 2015, this has been going on for a very long time. Now, when you think about the fact that some of this conduct occurred 25 years ago, and you wonder why would it take somebody so long to step forward, I want to remind you that many states in the United States have recognized that it's very difficult for a victim to step forward and to make these types of allegations when something very terrible has happened to them. I'll use New York, the state of New York, as an example. The state of New York has specific statutes in place that revive claims that are even claims that would typically be not able to be brought, that revive such claims, and they can be brought even 25 to 30 years later. Because there's a recognition there in New York and California and other states that it's very difficult for a victim to come forward. And I would respectfully suggest the only reason many of these people are coming forward because they see other victims coming forward. And it gives them some comfort that, hey, I won't be the only one. And I expect more victims will come forward. You know, there's an old saying that says, a lie has great speed, but truth has endurance. The acts complained of in these cases that we're going to file occurred primarily in New York, either Manhattan or the Hamptons, or occurred in California, primarily in Los Angeles, or in Florida, primarily in Miami. Most of these events and incidents occurred at parties, typically after parties, or album release parties, New Year's Eve parties, 4th of July parties, something they called a puppy party, the all-white party, although several of these events occurred at auditions. Many times, especially young people wanting to break into the industry were coerced into this type of conduct in the promise of being made a star or in the promise of having Sean Combs listen to their tape or even let them read for Sean Combs. You should know that some of this behavior occurred at well-known venues in New York City. Some of this behavior occurred at private residences of people that we all know. Some of this behavior occurred at hotels that we're all familiar with. You should know that more than 55% of the victims filed reported this conduct to either the authorities, that is the police, or to hospitals. We're in the process of collecting with our team assistants, medical records, reports that were made to the authorities. And I've already said that some of the individuals in this group did in fact talk to the FBI. You should know that several of the individuals, and when I say several, I mean many, who did in fact seek medical treatment were drug tested, and drugs were found in their system, weird drugs that you probably never heard of. One in particular that continues to pop up is a drug called xylazine or trank, which based on our research is known as a horse tranquilizer. Now, there's been a lot of reports that we're filing a class action. This is not a class action. Class action is when one or two people file a case on behalf of a group of people. That's not this. These cases will be individual cases. Each case will live and die on its own merit. These cases will be filed individually, one plaintiff against whoever the defendants were involved in the case. Each case may be filed in one venue like California, another case may be filed in New York. One case may sue just Sean Combs, but multiple other people. One case may sue a range of people. I would expect most, though, to be filed, as I said, in New York and Los Angeles. Now, I know this. Many of you came here thinking or hoping or perhaps believing that I may start naming names. That day will come, but it won't be today. The day will come when we will name names other than Sean Combs, and there's a lot of names. It's a long list already. And of course, I already know who some of these individuals are, but because of the nature of this case, we're going to make damn sure that we're right before we do that. But the names that we're going to name, assuming that our investigators confirm and corroborate what we've been told, are names that will shock you. These are individual cases. There are indeed other perpetrators involved. They will be revealed when that particular individual case is ready to be filed. They already know who they are. And I'm talking here about not just the cowardly but complicit bystanders. That is, those people that we know watched this behavior occur and did nothing. And I'm talking about the people that participated, encouraged it, egged it on. They know who they are. I call them the facilitators of foul play, willing participants in vile conduct. As we identify them, each will be part of this case as defendants. These defendants will not only include individuals, but would also include corporate entities who ultimately profited off of this culture and behavior. I'm looking at banks, pharmaceutical companies, hotels. We know that many of these individuals were paid cash. We know that many of these individuals involved, whether they were the ones being assaulted and abused, or they're witnessing other people being assaulted and abused and then paid and threatened and told to leave. Typically paid 10 grand in cash and told to leave, and then threatened as they were leaving. So in addition to Sean Combs, you should know the defendants in these cases we're going to file will include anyone, of course, who engaged in the assault or exploitation, anyone who participated in such in any way, anyone who encouraged or facilitated this conduct, anyone who was in the room and watched it happen but made no effort to stop it, any venue or venue owner who was aware of what was going on but failed to stop it, any individual or entity who knew about the conduct and benefited from it but did nothing to report it or stop it, and any individual or entity who covered it up or helped cover it up. These people who know who they are should just come forward now. I would imagine, as we speak here, there are a myriad of people who are very nervous. You can't hide skeletons in the closet forever. I would expect there are many people out there right now who are desperately searching their memories as they delete their texts and data. Now, although these are, in fact, individual cases, there is a common theme, an MO, if you will. Typically, the victim is lured into a situation where he or she is given a drink. Typically, that drink, reported by these victims, is apparently laced with something. Once that drink takes effect, the perpetrators perform all kinds of sexual acts on the victims, many times passing him or her around as other people watch and enjoy the show, and then leave the victim ashamed, confused, injured, and wondering what happened. When the victim reaches out, he or she is told not to say anything. Sometimes there are threats of physical violence or financial repercussions or bodily harm. The claims we intend to bring will include the following: violent sexual assault or rape, sexual abuse, facilitated sex with a controlled substance, false imprisonment, compelling prostitution, sexual misconduct, dissemination of video recordings, false imprisonment, sexual abuse of minors. Given the large volume of cases, and given our other docket obligations, and given the fact that we want to be sure when we file these cases that they are fully vetted, I expect we'll start filing these cases against Sean Combs and other perpetrators within the next 30 days. Now, it's rare, sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, this type of activity is pervasive in our society, and it's rare we get a chance where we can really focus on this as a country and really focus on this about how pervasive this is and what we can, as collectively can do about it. So I thought I'd take this opportunity before I go into some of the individual cases and talk about some of the individual claims being made and so you'll get a sense of what this 120 people group looks like individually. I want to bring forward Carrie Paul. She's a national victim advocate who helps victims who have been victimized by this type of conduct. And she has some important words, and I hope you'll pay close attention. I think it's important that you hear from her.
Hello, I'm Carrie Paul with the National Victim Advocate. It's not easy for any survivor to come forward. Our culture doesn't believe survivors. It blames and questions them. Instead of showing support, many choose to enable abusers. The media runs stories asking why it took so long for survivors to come forward instead of asking what barriers exist. We also don't equip law enforcement with the ability to handle sexual assault crimes. Lack of funding translates to lack of training. We have officers in the field that don't know what to say to a rape victim, and also an alarming amount of backlogged, untested rape kits. Prosecutors are focused on what they can prove in a case, and if so, how to do that at time of trial. Advocates and staff are stretched thin with growing caseloads in the criminal justice system. Most people don't know how the criminal justice works in general. There isn't enough staff or resources to adequately explain the entire process to every victim and survivor. Our culture works against victims and survivors every day, and abusers know this. Abusers work themselves into positions of power, building a public image that is trusted and financially large enough to make people look away. Abusers are unfortunately very skilled at power and control, the foundation of abuse. They seek victims who are vulnerable, such as children, their employees, and their intimate partners, all who see a different version than the public does, all who rely on the abuser in some way. And for those that do come forward and aren't believed, face questions like, are you sure it happened that way? Were you drinking? What were you wearing? All of this creates an environment that enables abusers to continue abusing them and future victims. To the survivors that have come forward despite not being believed at some point in time, your courage is like nothing we have seen before. We thank you for coming forward for yourself and all survivors. And lastly, I want all survivors that are watching this to know we believe you and we support you. Thank you.
I want you now to hear from my co-counsel, Andrew Van Arsdale. We've created a sexual abuse hotline, and I want him to visit with us just a few moments about how that works and the kind of volume of calls we've received.
Thank you, Tony. Like Tony said, my name is Andrew Van Arsdale. I'm the managing partner of ABA Law Group. We have offices in California, Montana, and North Carolina. To build off of what you just so well said, it's very hard to come forward. And given what we've experienced the past 10 days is really unprecedented in my career, at least. We represent thousands of survivors of abuse, and never, ever in a 10-day period have we seen over 3,000 people come forward, or we've confirmed and decided to investigate and represent 120 people, while we're continuing to work through another 100+ cases to prove them up, to validate what had happened here, and to hold those that are responsible accountable. And so, like Tony said, we've set this up. It's 1-800-200-7474. I have a team of people standing by, literally. If you know that this happened to someone and you have information about it, please contact us. If this happened to you, come forward. There's attorney-client privilege here. What you tell us is in confidence. Yes, we'll have to go out and build your case, but we will protect you. And the other thing that I want to say is the pattern and practice of this, again, is unprecedented. Over 30+ years of the same sort of events happening, people thrust into the circle reportedly, and horrible things happening to them as a result. And from talking to these people that have come forward these past 10 days, I can tell you unequivocally that because the federal government did what it needed to do and indicted this man, that they put him in jail and a judge kept him in jail, they tell me directly, this validates my feelings. For so long, I thought it was my fault. What is it about me that put myself in that scenario? What was I wearing at the time? What did I do to be subjected to such horrific treatment at these people that I was trying to trust? Well, we know now it was not your fault. You were victimized by a group of powerful people that operated for 30 plus years, taking advantage of their wealth and the power that they held within the music industry. So again, thank you to every single person that has come forward and contacted our office over the past 10 days. If you or someone you know suffered the same sort of treatment, please contact us at the number behind me and we will help you. Thank you.
I think it speaks to how important this issue is in the United States and frankly, internationally, that we have reputable people here that want to provide kind of information that I think victims need to hear, witnesses need to hear, the public needs to hear. Let me introduce to you now Olivia Rivers from the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, and let her visit with you a few moments about these types of cases.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Q Olivia Rivers. I am just served my 6th year as the board chair for the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault. I'm also the CEO for the Bridge Over Troubled Waters, which is a local rape crisis center here in the Houston area. So thank you for being here as we address these heinous crimes. Sexual assault is not just a crime of violence against the body. It's an assault on the very essence of human dignity and safety. It shatters lives, it destroys confidence, and all too often, it leaves survivors feeling like they are voiceless, isolated, and vulnerable. The reality for many survivors is that coming forward to report their assault is one of the most difficult and daunting tasks that they will ever have to do. And for some, it may take days, months, or even years to speak up if they ever do. The reasons for this have been mentioned, but include the fear of being disbelieved, being blamed or judged, and of course, retaliation. The trauma of the assault itself being compounded by the trauma of the criminal justice process, where survivors must relive their experience in order to seek justice. And these feelings and fears are further exacerbated when the allegations are against prominent figures in the entertainment industry or Hollywood. Cases involving powerful figures often attract significant media attention, which can deter victims from coming forward due to fear of public exposure or scrutiny. The intense focus on these high-profile cases can make survivors feel that their personal lives are being put under a microscope, causing further emotional distress. These allegations mentioned here today, as reported, reflect deeply troubling claims that deserve thorough investigation, and no individual, regardless of their stature, is above the law or public accountability. Sadly, the statistics paint a very disturbing picture. According to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men will experience some form of sexual violence in their lifetime. In the US alone, there are approximately 463,000 victims of rape or sexual assault every year, and these numbers barely scratch the surface, as sexual violence remains one of the most underreported crimes. But the numbers that follow tell an even more troubling story. Only about 23% of sexual assaults are reported to law enforcement. Of those, just 5% lead to an arrest, and even fewer, less than 1% of reported cases ever result in a conviction, which is a devastating gap between the crime and the justice that survivors deserve. I want to briefly focus on our state here in Texas. According to the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, 6.3 million Texans, men and women, will experience some form of violence. That's every 2 minutes someone is sexually assaulted, meaning during the course of this press conference, around 60 individuals will forever be changed by this violence. And those are just a few of the victims. Obviously, this is unacceptable. We cannot allow this cycle of silence and inaction to continue. We have to create an environment where survivors feel empowered to come forward, where they are met with empathy and respect and support, not skepticism and blame. We have to ensure that our legal system is equipped to handle these cases with the seriousness they deserve, and that survivors have access to the resources that they need beyond the legal courtroom. We have to address the root causes of this epidemic: prevention, awareness, and fostering environments where respect, consent, and safety are non-negotiable values. Additionally, support for survivors has to be holistic. They have to have access to counseling, medical services, legal advocacy, and of course, community support, regardless of whether they choose to report or not. To every survivor who has come forward, your bravery is an inspiration. To those who are still grappling with their decision, know that you are not alone and that your voice matters. Your story matters. We see you, we believe you, and we are committed to fighting for a future where sexual violence is no longer tolerated and where justice is not the exception, but the standard. Thank you.
I want to visit with you real quickly before we close here about some specific instances without disclosing the victim's name. You probably know that depending on the age of the victim, you can file these cases, these individual cases, under Jane Doe or John Doe. Each state is different in that respect. Typically, there is a balancing test, like the public's right to know the name of the victim and plaintiff versus the confidentiality and the safety of the plaintiff. So we'll have to struggle with that with each one of these cases. Our intention, of course, is to, like we always do, file these cases under a pseudonym until the court tells us otherwise. But let me share with you a few, just kind of give you a sense of the kind of cases and the kind of instances that people are calling and reporting that we are trying to corroborate, vet, and these are the ones that we've already corroborated, vetted, and collected evidence on. One individual who was 22 years at the time she was assaulted said that the typical MO at one of these parties that have been widely discussed in the press was that when you were handed a drink, and now we know that the drink is laced with something, if you refused to drink it, you were kicked out of the party. Now, let that sink in for a minute. I mean, the admission to this party was that you had to drink the chosen drink that was handed to you. And now we know that in most cases, I would say 90% of the cases, these individuals were drugged with some sort of drug. That was kind of the MO. Another instance, this individual who was 9 years old at the time was taken to an audition in New York City with Bad Boy Records. Other boys were there to audition as well. All of them were trying to land a record deal. All of them were minors. This individual was sexually abused, allegedly by Sean Combs and several other people at the studio in the promise to both his parents and to him himself of getting a record deal. Another instance, another minor told allegedly by Sean Combs that he would make him a star, but he needed to visit with him in private about it, away from his parents. Once they were in a private area, allegedly Mr. Combs made the victim perform oral sex upon him. Another incident, an individual 15 years old at the time, flown to New York City to attend a party, was drugged, and then taken into a private room, allegedly in the presence of Mr. Combs, where this female individual, minor, was raped, and then other individuals took turns raping her. Another individual, 26 at the time of the occurrence, was picked up allegedly by Mr. Combs and several other people in a black SUV from the airport, was given one drink in the SUV, and then literally woke up the next day not knowing what had happened, but with pain and damage to both her vagina and her anus, where she then went to the hospital. She was missing her underwear and her shoes. Another instance, the individual, this time not a minor, attended a group dinner, allegedly with Sean Combs in Miami. She wasn't drinking because she was pregnant. but whatever she drank at the table, apparently, at least according to her, was laced with something. She blacked out, and she woke up in the same bed, again, allegedly, with Mr. Combs in his mansion in Miami. Her vagina and her anus were torn and sore. And I could go on. I mean, literally, you're sensing a theme here. It's the same theme, and it all involves some sort of drug. One instance, an individual who was 20 years old at the time was asked to attend, just saw her on the street, asked to attend a party in a hotel. She was flattered, went to the party, was given one drink and doesn't remember anything else. Ultimately, was so messed up, went to the hospital where they found cocaine and this horse tranquilizer in her blood system. I want to give you a quote from a very young man who told us over the phone about his experience and all the things that happened to him. He says, allegedly at the hands of Sean Diddy Combs and his friends in the effort to try to sign a record deal. This was kind of what he was told he would have to do. His quote is, "Had he not been in power, I feel like I could have been something great. I quit the industry because of what Sean Combs did to me." And that's really what it comes down to. We are pursuing this, asking you to support this effort, to encourage witnesses and victims to come forward and bring your evidence so we can continue to break down this wall of silence and we can continue to have these stories heard. This is the beginning of what I hope to be a national dialogue. This type of sexual assault, sexual abuse, and sexual exploitation should never happen in the United States or anywhere else. This should have never been allowed to go on for so long. This conduct has created a mass of individuals who are injured, scared, and scarred. If you are one of those individuals, we ask you to reach out. If not to us, to someone you trust. If you are someone who witnessed any of these events, we ask you to reach out. Your name can remain confidential. With that, I'll take a few questions, not many, maybe two, but if you have a question, I'll be pleased to try to answer it. Perfect.
How many minors are making accusations in total, and are the feds aware of the allegations of minors in the case?
I don't know what the feds are aware of, okay, but I do know it's 25 out of this 120.
Antonio,
But I will say this to that point. We welcome the FBI or any authority who wants to come to us, and we're going to make that available to these victims because I think that's important. My suspicion is, based on talking with these folks, is that the FBI is just not aware of these people. The FBI has talked to some of these folks, and I'm going to try to encourage the victims to, in fact, talk to the FBI because I think they have some very important things to say.
Tony, were all of the children auditioning because they were musicians, or were any of them kids of employees or anything like that?
All seeking either TV or some sort of music career with promises of, we're going to make you a star. Instead, basically did things to them such that they don't want to have anything to do with the entertainment industry ever again. All right, guys. Thank you very much for your attention. We're going to go now. Thank you.
Tony, do you anticipate any Houston cases?
Any filed here?
Locally, yeah.
There's a few plaintiffs here, but I don't anticipate filing them. Probably in New York City.
Well, that was a mind-blowing news conference. I've probably been to 1,000 news conferences in my career, and I don't recall one that's as disturbing as the one that we just listened to. I know some of the details got very graphic toward the end, but I was telling the COE, I think it's important. But But man, let me start here. Obviously, STS Nation, our community is amazing, and I know we're all thinking the same thing. Our hearts go out to the victims here. Tony Busby made it clear 60 males, 60 females came forward from more than 25 states, including New York City, California, Georgia, and Florida. The majority, he said, were from California. I've got to say this. Whenever you hear, personal injury attorney, you think maybe ambulance chaser, but I got to say, I thought Tony Busby handled this really well. He seemed very sincere. Make no mistake about it, it will be a big, big payday for him, but he seemed truly interested in trying to help these victims. So kudos to him in that regard. We'll see how this all plays out. There was a great quote from him. Lies have great speed. Truth has endurance. Truth has endurance. So truth will endure here. The day will come. The COE has a quote up here. The day will come when we will name names other than Sean Combs because of the nature of the cases. We're going to make damn sure we're right first. That was also something that Tony Busby said. Tommy Scoville, as we speak here, there are a myriad of people who are very nervous, he said, and I took copious notes on this. We'll go through it. First off, Tommy, thanks for being here. Second off, Tommy, what was your reaction to listening to this? It was kind of nuts.
Well, I think a lot of people have been talking about, when you hear 120 or 100 cases coming forward, you start to worry about whether or not all of these things are really being vetted, because that just sounds like such a huge number that you start to worry if, that maybe this is like an ambulance chasing, like a cash grab kind of a thing. Then you hear that there were over 3,000 people that they talked to. Good God in heaven. Like, that was the one that I think shocked me. That, and the other thing was that I was pretty disturbed that all of the people they were testing for drugs were having trank in them. That is a mix of two drugs, and it is one of the most vicious, addictive substances. That could very well be why Diddy is having such a bad time in there.
I'm sorry, Tommy. Which drug is that now?
So you heard him in the press conference talk about they tested for something called xylazine. Okay, that's a horse tranquilizer. Yeah, trank. They mixed that with a really heavy-duty opiate like the Fent, or like there's a new one out called Phyto or isonitazines that they mix this stuff in with, but it is viciously addicting and a just terrible drug. It's killing more people than anything else in this country currently.
So if Diddy was in fact taking it himself, what you're saying is he's going through hell detoxing from this right now. Not that any of us should really care about how he's feeling right now, but is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because the horse tranquilizer is really the issue. Xylazine is this stuff isn't made to be given to human beings, but it's probably closest to like a benzodiazepine, like a Valium or something like that. That family of drugs, but so much stronger. And that's one of the few drugs. That family of drugs is one of the few things that if you go cold turkey, it can actually kill you. I mean, the withdrawals coming off of benzos, that family is a very, very dangerous thing to kick. It could explain why he's not eating. That's a miserable, miserable detox.
Patty Barnett here. Diddy is the face. They're far more behind the scenes exploiting the industry. You heard Tony Busby say this. Space Coast on the West Coast, the scope of culpability is massive. You can say that again. He said there are going to be huge names that come out. This might be the most destructive, implosive case for Hollywood that Hollywood has ever seen. I have a feeling that this is going to actually, hopefully at the end of all this, will change Hollywood. But this is going to devastate a lot of big name celebrities. I have no doubt. And you know what? If they're involved, they deserve every bit of what's coming. Yeah, they deserve every bit of what's coming their way. So let's just go. Yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
I said, and they're really scared tonight. When he said there's a lot of people out here right now that I bet are really nervous, it's because right before he said that, he kind of broke down that if you were in the room, right, if you were hanging out, if you just happened to be there, right, but you knew that happened, yeah, you're coming in too. And I think that the reason there's been such dead silence from people like the basketball stars and some of his other friends is because they're wondering, they were at those parties, the big parties he just named off. I mean, there were a lot of really big name people at those particular parties, like the white party, like his 40th birthday, like the New Year's bashes. These are the ones that are legendary parties. These are the ones that, everybody went to. This is crazy.
Lisa Trimble, no truer words spoken here. These crimes are beyond heinous. There aren't words for this. It is soul crushing. I stand with the victims. I mean, this is as bad as it gets, I think.
This is as
Again,
bad as it gets.
I've probably been to 1,000 press conferences, if not more, and I don't remember anything remotely close to this. I mean, you hear isolated instances of, let's say, a serial killer, but again, what Space Coast was saying, the scope of this is really unreal. This is a question I guess everyone's asking from Don Hagerman, friend of the show, always here, smart man. What's really disturbing, Tommy, is how did they let it go on so long? I'm sure some people have reported it. Prayers to the victims and all involved. I mean, what is your best guess? Why do you think they said this spans back 25 something years, or maybe even more? I think it was 1991, so that's more than 25 years. But
Yeah.
how was Diddy able to get away with this allegedly for so long?
Well, my humble opinion, right, is that there was a lot of people on the payroll, right? That is absolutely what. And there are a lot of people. This is not a shot in the dark, right? There's people alleging that there are several police stations that have pictures of him on the wall up next to the officers and everything else. Like, there's some really suspect stuff with this dude. He definitely seems to be very cozy with certain law enforcement groups that have got a history of leaving confidential informants alone, right? That's something that has happened again and again and again. Now, there's a bunch of people alleging that this guy was an informant for the feds. If that's the truth, that could explain why he was allowed to do the things that he was doing. If he was giving up info or doing any of that, they protect their own.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Pretzels and Cornbread here. If the Menendez brothers are monsters, the name of the Netflix show right now, what does it make Diddy? You can compare to some extent. What they did was horrendous too. Obviously, in different ways, different contexts, but all these crimes are brutal and just, I don't know, just absolutely disgusting in nature. So Tony Busby, who is this personal injury attorney out of Houston, he says that, and I quote here, "We like the tough, complicated cases." He represented victims in the Deshaun Watson case, by the way. It was an NFL player that was accused of essaying some women, but he says that this one here may surpass them all. So many people involved. He said, "We are going to expose the enablers. We're going to pursue it no matter who this implicates. We're going to pursue it no matter who this implicates," he said. He said, this was the biggest secret, not really a secret, in the entertainment industry, and it has been broken wide open. He then went on to say, these are going to be individual cases. Some people were thinking this is a class action lawsuit, but right now they are representing 120 individuals who plan to bring civil cases. He said they plan to start filing in the next 30 days. Then broke down the demographics: 60 males, 60 females. 60%, he said, I believe, are African American. 30% were white. The other 10% of Hispanic or Latino heritage. But he said, Tommy, and you just mentioned this, over 3,200 people have contacted the Busby law firm. That's an insane number, Tommy.
It was an absolutely insane number. And, they didn't, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody other than these 100, were trying to hustle them either. This could just be that a lot of the people that come forward may not have, as much evidence as other people. That may sound cold-hearted, but you heard him in the press conference where he said, listen, come in, bring your evidence, right? Come on in and bring your evidence. I think that he probably has a bunch of it. I would imagine that the sort of the top echelon in this, like the 55 people that reported this, right, that had made reports. So this is not definitely going to be one of those things where I think that there's going to be a whole lot of fire here, not just a whole lot of smoke. I really do. I think this is good. And as you said, this could go all the way into Hollywood in a way we haven't seen. He mentioned corporate entities. He mentioned really famous people's houses that let it go on there, and I thought that was kind of interesting. It's going to be pretty wild to see who may be the owners of those houses, right?
Yeah.
But he hinted to a couple of these parties that there were a lot of really famous people at every one of those parties. So
Yeah, you remember the Public Enemy song, Burn Hollywood Burn. I think that's about to happen. It's about to crumble on top of that. Red Rocker here, what the F? We heard 25 minors. So Tommy, he did break it down. He said that the youngest victim in this, who they're representing, 9 years old at the time, 9 years old at the time, coming from 25 states. Again, the majority from California, goes back between the years 1991 to 2024. The majority say that they were victimized after 2015. So that's in the last 9 years, of course. And he said a bunch have already gone to the FBI. But Tony Busby, he's someone told me, and I don't know if this is true, that he has an actual, obviously he's a man of pretty big wealth, but he apparently has a tank on his front lawn in Houston. So when you have a lot of money, you can buy tanks and put them on your front lawn. So
as well you should, right?
Yeah,
Why not?
He's a pretty tough guy, but he said himself that he has been personally threatened. But he says, I believe victims. He said that they're vetting all callers from these alleged victims. They've collected pictures, video, texts, and even said that they now have a former detective on staff, which I'm going to ask Phil Waters about, who is from the Houston PD. Tommy, what about these pictures, videos, and texts that he says that he has in their possession? It's one thing to say something happened. It's another thing to have video and text of it. How potentially damning is that?
I think that this is going to be devastating, to be sure, and I think that we've been waiting for this forever. The size of these parties, right? Every once in a while, you'll see some video that Diddy was doing himself, like he was having people film him, and you watch those parties. It looks like 5 or 6 nightclubs. Like this wasn't a house party. This was thousands of people, and the odds that there are people in there taking recordings that you don't know about. I think that it's kind of funny that this guy who was recording everybody else is gonna, there's a lot of stuff that's gonna come out of people who are recording him and the people at his parties. And I hope that the big names do get hemmed up in this, especially the people in the record labels and stuff like that. It's alleged that they put up the money for these parties, like these huge money parties. It's alleged that they were deep into this. This is a recruiting tool. You notice that they said that every one of the people was coming in for the, with the allure of, hey, come on in, we're going to make you a star. Yeah. It's just so foul, so foul.
Yeah. By the way, someone mentioned 30 days. I know the Ava Law Group founder, who is also one of the lawyers there from LA. They have multiple offices in multiple states. But Tony, did you catch how long the Busby law firm has been working on this? Did all these people come forward in just the last 30 days? That seems like a crazy number and a crazy amount of work.
No, I think that's not what I got out of this. What I thought was that once this sort of once the news kind of broke of what he was doing, and that the big rush has been, I think he said in the last 10 days or whatever, has been insane. But they've been working on this for you know what? It's a great comment. It really is a great comment. I was thinking the same thing when it was happening.
Yeah.
This press conference.
It says, let me get, for those listening, the comment is from Beachy. Let me get this straight. It took a private lawyer to expose all these predators and not law enforcement ? Tommy, what about that? I mean, are you saying with the photos of Diddy and different possible jurisdictions and departments, is the implication there that some of these law enforcement officers were turning a blind eye to what some of these complaints were?
I don't know how you could have, say, 55 people fill out reports that that there was an SA that happened. Then they get, drug screens back and find out that they've been, doped, and nothing's happened. Yeah, I would say that the appearance, it doesn't look good. You would think that even with the statistics they said, I mean, you would think that we would have heard about some of this, even if the thing didn't come to fruition or whatever. But we have no idea, right? I guess the Hollywood did, but this is really disturbing, is what it is. It's really disturbing.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Nothing's going to happen to Hollywood. I think this is going to be the case that maybe changes Hollywood culture. People are already irritated with Hollywood in general. You know, like the Academy Awards, their ratings from 30 years ago to now are minuscule. Look at this. Norway's in the house. I'm going to keep going through this. By the way, programming note, Tommy Scoville, he's back tonight at 7:00. We've got a psychologist, Dr. John Delatorre, and an attorney, a Miami-based attorney who's going to be joining us as well this evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to break all this down, take your questions, and then 12:30 tomorrow, we're going to be getting into the Sarah Boone case, which I have not really, for full disclosure, followed, but I will be doing my homework. And there's a chance that Meave Moen and myself will be headed to the trial next week or the week after, at least for a couple of days. So that ought to be interesting, as long as Meave Moen does not spill anything in my Bronco again.
Or if she doesn't end up with her 13th attorney and you guys have to drive back up again.
That's true.
She's not had a lot of luck.
Well, she's on her 9th attorney, and I heard he brought in like 2 or 3. So it's like literally at 12 attorneys, which is crazy. So back to the Diddy conference. Again, Tony Busby, I was impressed with him. He says these are not easy cases, really hard to prove, lengthy cases. He said that, as Tommy just mentioned, most of the victims were lured with the promise of becoming a star. It's kind of like the oldest Hollywood trick in the book. He said these things happened at well-known venues, at hotels, at homes. 55% of the victims previously filed reports. So, Tommy, what's going on there? I mean, this is more than half of the 120 victims previously filed reports. What do you think happened with those reports? Like, why was nothing done? Someone also asked if these people were going to the hospital, for to get checked out after being assaulted. Why didn't the hospitals flag law enforcement? Do you have any idea?
This is the theory that we've heard from a bunch of people, that especially out on the West Coast, that they had a back door into one of the facilities. Like he had the Puff Daddy entrance, so that if you're doing the domestic violence thing, they didn't have to take him through the front door and have press and everything else. I mean, some of the people that bodyguarded for him and some of the things they say, this was such a recurring thing, right? This guy's been doing this forever. And you heard the attorney say, if somebody sees something or says something, the money comes out, right? They offer him 10 grand and get rid of him, or they offer him 50 grand and get rid of him. Crazy. It really is. But I think they spread around a lot of money. And I think they own some law enforcement. I mean, it's kind of a bummer of a thing to think about, but there's a lot of smoke around that. There really is. There's a lot of smoke that this guy was very, very active, building relationships with people in that kind of community.
Yeah, Tommy's deep into the story, which is why we're having him come back on as a recurring guest with this. But Mary Binney here, I don't know much about this, but Tommy, apparently Kevin Hart hosted some of his parties. What's the word as far as you've been looking into these things? And we don't want to be premature and call people out, but obviously Kevin Hart's a big star, as is Jay-Z. People have said things about Jay-Z. People have said things about J-Lo. People have said things about Ashton Kutcher. You think some of these names are going to come to fruition, that we will find out that they were, in fact, involved in some of this?
Well, for instance, with Kevin Hart, he when he hosted the party, he had a microphone, there was a camera, and his reactions to the things that were going on at the party is why everybody is starting to really sort of smut this guy up. They're not suggesting necessarily that he was participating in any of the stuff but he was laughing about some stuff that isn't really funny. Diddy made some references that to wrestling early in the morning when he first woke up with a very young Usher. And Kevin Hart said, what do you have to do? That was a stupid thing to say when you're live. And he's laughing hysterically, and it didn't age well. It's a pretty ugly clip, and it is all over the net. It's disturbing. It really is. It's disturbing. But looking back on his parties now, we do see it through a different lens because of what we know. You follow me? But
Yeah.
it's I think it was probably disturbing then, and we just didn't have a. If we were looking at it with a different eye, it is pretty foul stuff. None of it ages well.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm in no way saying Kevin Hart necessarily had anything to do with it, but you just look at a guy like Kevin Hart, and he's such a likable person, right?
Yeah.
And he's so popular. He's doing ads for everything. But so is another person. O.J. Simpson used to do Monday Night Football, used to do Hertz ads.
Hurts. Yeah.
O.J., people don't remember this, prior to his murder, was probably one of the most popular, charismatic, likable guys you could ever meet. I mean, I remember as a kid, I lived in upstate New York. I had a Buffalo Bills football helmet that's still somewhere in my mom's basement, and it had OJ's number on the back. I mean, I was a huge OJ fan. So, I mean, the point I'm making here is you just never know who a person is, especially a famous person, because there is, they put up a lot of facades. So this really needs, these people really need to be held accountable. And back to Tony Busby, he basically made it clear that they would be. He went on to say, we talked about this a little bit, I'm just going through the notes, that this xylazine, otherwise known as Trank, which is a horse tranquilizer, was found in many of the victims that came forward to him. Again, he made it clear that this was not a class action lawsuit. And here's the part that got everyone's ears perked up here. This is Tony Busby, direct quote. I will start naming names other than Sean Combs, but we want to make damn sure we're right first. These names will shock you. They already know who they are. Tommy, there's not even, you don't even need to read between the lines there. Let me ask you this. This guy, Tony Busby, I'm curious if he has security. It is Texas. I'm sure he carries. I would not be surprised. But he's doing the absolute right thing here. Think he's playing with fire? I mean, he's treading in dangerous waters. Let's put it that way.
Here's the thing though. Even if you were to, they were to successfully do something to this guy, right? I don't think this goes away. If you were to get rid of this attorney, I don't think everyone would go up. That was great. Wish we had another attorney. We would have gone after him. I think that this is, like you said, I really do believe that this is going to change Hollywood forever. I don't think that it's going to be what we wish, but I do think a lot of people are going to be really embarrassed. Huge amounts of people are going to be really embarrassed, and I think a lot of them may end up arrested.
Yeah, it's going to go beyond embarrassment. They might be locked up, but this is why I love Ned Smith. He's got snipers hiding in his tank on the front lawn. I don't think Tony Busby does not strike me as the kind of guy that would be fearful. I can assure you, if I was a personal injury attorney and I told Carm I was about to represent 120 Diddy victims, she would tell me not to do it. Just because she wouldn't want anything happening to her darling little son. By the way, Carm is out of her mind. There was just a big terror attack in Israel, and missiles going into Israel from Iran. Iran is firing on Israel as we speak. So whenever that happens, which is Iran is a first, Carm loses her you-know-what, and I'm going to have to check in on her. She's in Jersey with my sister. I digress for a moment there, as I like to do. But Tommy, this was interesting. You brushed on this earlier on. Tony Busby. It's not just people. I'm also going to be calling out banks, pharmaceutical companies, hotels, any corporate entities that helped conceal this. These are now shareholders being affected, Tommy. It could be a huge corporate entity, and he brings them down, and suddenly people, the masses, are losing money in stocks. People are not going to be very happy with Diddy or these corporations. I mean, what do you, is this just going to be an all-out go get 'em assault on these people who terrorize these victims?
I think it's going to be interesting because it's a really interesting angle that you bring up, because some of the people whose names, and they're all alleged, right? Because they all deny it. But some of the names that are being brought up in this are institutions, right? In other countries. And, there's just such an industry almost that goes around these people that, yeah, this is going to shake up an awful lot of stuff. It really is. And you're not going to necessarily have to be charged with anything either, right? I mean, if you're going to go in there as you were in there and watched this happen, this is going to do a lot of damage to a lot of people's careers and reputations.
You see here Demi Moore writing that Ashton Kutcher here was into drugs and kink.
Yeah.
Diddy, a person saying that Diddy is poisoned people. Do we have enough jails for all these monsters? I'm not so sure about that, actually. They can always build more, I suppose. So here's another interesting part of this press conference. Tony Busby called out these perpetrators, not by name, but he said, you should just come forward now. The implication was, I'm coming to get you anyway. And then he said, you cannot hide skeletons in the closet forever. Tony, do you think, Tommy, not Tony, you're Tommy and Tony, but Tommy, Tommy. Do you think that people will maybe come forward who were complicit because they realize it might be a better gamble than waiting? It'd be wild if you saw a big name come forward. I personally can't see it happening because there's just so much arrogance among the Hollywood elite, as they say. But what do you think? I mean, he challenged them to come forward. Do you think we see people do that?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see like the big name athletes, and I don't think we're going to see the huge rock stars. But this guy had a bunch of hangers-ons, right? He had a bunch of people whose jobs it were to do just about anything, and I thought it was really smart of him to say, "I don't care if you have never been there, but you just show up afterwards to help him clean this mess up. Yeah, you're still in this too." And throwing that kind of stuff out, yeah, I think there'll be some people who maybe were part of the cleanup crew. I think there'll be some people who weren't dead center in the middle of it, but will start realizing that, you know what, you're probably better off being a witness than a defendant. And, getting out in front of it for some people, I would be going nuts if I was somebody and I thought that there was a chance I was in this case, waiting to see whether or not they were going to charge me. I personally, I might be somebody that would walk in there. That would drive me insane. Think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've asked you about that, Tommy. After you robbed the bank, what was it like? You said the anxiety of waiting was like too much to bear. So, I mean, that's a torture that these perpetrators are going to deserve, and they're going to get.
Sean Combs is getting it right now.
Yes, he is. D-Cord 49. This is so sick and twisted, and everyone involved needs to be exposed for the despicable human being that they are. Look at D-Cord. Some people just have sweet faces. Like, she has a sweet face. Like, that when you meet her, she's nice. Like, she's sweet. Can't say that about everybody, but some people you can tell. Again, so typically Tony went on, Busby, the attorney, said that they were laced with his drink, that the perpetrators would perform all sorts of SA on the victims. They would leave the victims confused. And when the victims kind of came to and asked what happened, they would be threatened. And this was violent SA. This was the R word. They would also disseminate video recordings. It was also the SA of minors. That's when he went on to say, look, we're going to be filing in the next 30 days. He then also said he was going to be discussing specific instances, which he did at the end. But he would not disclose names of his victims, of course. But he said in some states you're able to file under Jane or John Doe. Tommy, one of the things that he mentioned, which is interesting, is it's true. The media always says, well, why did they wait so long? The media seems to always attack the victims in these cases. Do you think we're going to see that?
You betcha.
Now, or will there be? Yeah, you think we'll see it now?
I do. I think that, and I don't think every single time we see one of these happen, there are less Cro-Magnons that are coming out and saying that. But and I think that on the bigger networks, you have a lot less chance of seeing that. But in the realm that we kind of live in, there are some people that really, I don't know whether they could possibly mean it, or maybe they're just trying to ride the other side of the wave. But there are people who create content that say, that these are willing participants. Yeah, oh yeah, they were getting high, but they went out there because they were into it. Or there's another guy that that argues, if you're trading something to be famous, what's wrong with that? Like, did a whole video on it, and you're going, oh no, right? That's not consent. But I guess in 2024 there are still some people that haven't got the memo, and I think that you'll see people saying some stupid stuff. It always happens, sadly.
Yeah. By the way, Nancy Adler, echoing what I was saying, still a Bills fan, no longer an OJ fan. There you go.
I
So
had
then
an
he
autographed picture of him. My
Did you?
dad got when I was a kid. I guess he knew somebody that was an agent for him or whatever. My brother and I both had an autographed picture of him.
Yeah. What about this, Tommy, from Ned Smith? Won't it be difficult to prove knowledge of party goers? I mean, he was very clear. This is very hard to prove. He said usually it's one person's word against the other. These are tough cases, Tommy.
Yeah, they're really tough cases. But traditionally when we hear SA, it's one person's word against another because they're not doing it in a room with 15 people watching. He used the term cheering on. I got to believe that there's going to be a video or an audio. That's a really, really kind of ugly term. We know who you are, the people that were there cheering this on. I think that, I don't think we're thinking about the more traditional SA. This guy did this as a lifestyle. This guy did this so it became so out in the open. If what they're saying is true, these are 9 to 14-year-old boys who show up with their parents, and he sneaks them off to SA them and brings them back. I mean, the level of hubris, I don't know, the level of arrogance that this dude had, it's almost unbelievable. Like, he thought that none of the laws on this plane apply to him. It's creepy.
Yeah. Debbie Blair here. This keeps coming up again and again, Tommy. I hope this isn't another Epstein situation, but now the heat is really on. I mean, the heat is really on, and powerful people have connections, and there's obviously very powerful people involved in this. I'm tempted to say a name that I'm not going to. But let's put it this way. She's famous. She goes by one name, and she used to be a talk show host. Even her name has been brought brought into it, and it spells Harpo backwards. How about that?
That's
so
right.
even her name is being bandied about. So
and a couple others that when you hear, you go, no, wait, what? Like that's just not a person that could be at a party like that. But apparently there were people who really dug his parties and really made a point of not missing them. And some of the names that you're going to hear aren't going to make sense to you. You're going to be shocked. But these were big things. There were tons of people there. He did.
I mean, so back to the Epstein thing. I mean, do you think with the heat on now that there is a real possibility that they try to get to him at the MDC in Brooklyn?
I think that with what's going on with Busby and all of these things, the more that this starts to drag in all of these other entities, the more they start going after all of the parties that were involved in this. I don't know that cutting off the head of the snake would be enough to stop this. You follow me?
Yeah.
It's a pretty crazy scenario, really, that we're going into, and I don't think whacking the guy would get him the solution that they want. And I'm not trying to go against anybody, but it's not as easy as you would think. Some of the people that make it sound like it would be very easy to get at this guy. You would have to buy off so many people, and because of what happened with Epstein, right? Because of what happened with Epstein, if somebody came up and said, "Hey, take a cigarette break. We're doing this, this, and this," I think everybody else would be going, "No, yeah, no." Everybody's kind of hyper vigilant. I think the guy stands a good chance of getting to, unless he legitimately Epstein's himself. I mean, if he really does want to remove himself from the earth, you're going to be able to do that in there. I promise. If he really wants to, but I think he's too arrogant for that.
I think so too. Diddy is only one snake on a Medusa's head of snakes. That's a pretty good way to put it, I guess. So, just getting back, and then we'll wrap in a little bit to this press conference. Tony Busby, the attorney who led the press conference, basically said that these victims, if they refused to take the drink at a Diddy party, they were kicked out of the party. In 90% of the cases that he's representing right now, the victims were drugged. As for the 9-year-old victim, it was a boy. He was taken to an audition at Bad Boys in at the studio in New York. I think this was all the way back in the early 90s, Tommy. He was SA'd by Sean Combs and others for a promise for a record deal. Another minor was told by Diddy he'd make him a star, and then made the underage victim perform things with his mouth, the underage victim.
Yeah.
Another 15-year-old drug taken into a private room, and people had their way with him and took turns. Tony Busby went on to say he hopes this becomes part of a national conversation, which I do too. I hope that it changes or affects change somehow in Hollywood and among these corporations that may have been complicit. But Tommy, prior to this press conference, have you heard of anyone close to 9 years old in age? I mean, that's incredibly young.
Absolutely not. Like honestly, everybody will make reference to the fact that there were underage people at these parties, and I think all of us kind of assumed we were going to hear 17, 16, 17, but I guess nothing at this point is shocking. It literally 120 people, 60 60 and 60. He was attacking allegedly everybody, right? If you wanted to get into the industry, this was just something that virtually everybody was going to have to do, apparently. And some of the things that he said kind of gave hints, and I promise I won't say any of the names, but there are people, for instance, he said, this one guy really wanted to be something, and he seemed to be pretty successful, but after what happened, he just wants nothing to do with the music industry. Well, there's a couple of stories just like that have already been alleged to some people whose names are pretty easy to track down. So we might see some names in this that we already are very familiar with in terms of people that he assaulted.
Yeah, it's going to be a wide net. Cornelia here. Hi, greetings from Switzerland, which is where my mom made her home after World War II. Just subscribe to your great channel. If you appreciate the two press conferences, first the Kentucky judge shot by the Kentucky sheriff, and now back to back with this Diddy press conference. If you appreciate it, please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the like button, and please share it with friends. Let friends know. A lot of people are asking about the parents. Catalina says, so great to see Tommy on STS. I'm a big fan. Did parents know, were any complicit? Ask Busby. He didn't mention that, but that's come up with Justin Bieber, and that's no secret. Where were his parents? What do you think the answer is, Tommy?
I think that very often, sadly, when you follow the stuff that and read some of the books that the kids wrote who were doing the Nickelodeon stuff, I think the parents become rock stars in their head. I think having this is something that they very often look the other way, and I don't mean that they're serving their child up, but I mean the small stuff that if you were there, you'd go, oh, that just doesn't look right. This is someone that wants so badly for their child to be a star, and very often, this is their way out of poverty and into something incredible. Very often, that's the hip hop story. So, I think it's with that carrot they dangle in front of the kid. I think that carrot is pretty tough for the parents too. But
Kim DeLorme. Yeah, Kim DeLorme. The answer is quite a bit. I just arrived home. What have I missed? You're gonna have to go back and watch. You missed a lot, and it's heavy, and it's kind of crazy. Samantha Marlman, it's a law for any healthcare professional or educator to report any and all abuse, no matter what form of it. Disgusting. But I mean, Tommy, what about the fact that he was such a powerful figure, I guess, in Hollywood. I just don't. I mean, I get it, and I don't get it. Like, why would you cover for Diddy? But apparently, many people did. But Tommy, why? Why?
I get the feeling that it's probably a person that's not just covering for Diddy, right? There's probably a 12 pack of these of people who beat individuals until they have nose jobs that needs to be done or whatever that needs to be done, because the beatings that are described in Cassie Ventura's lawsuit, something was done to make sure that stuff didn't do a lot of damage to her face. And I'm not being a wise guy. Like, they had to have brought her to the hospital a lot, right? But the descriptions of what happened, that had to be happening a lot. So, and there's none of this. You never hear of any of it. And I think that, as crazy as it is, we live in that country. And if you're a doctor, you're telling your friends, you know what? I work with Sean Combs. I do things with it's that star status thing. People let famous people get away with things they would never let anybody else on earth. They're special for some reason, right? Whole families, that's a great comment. Whole families got groomed by these people. That's real.
Yeah, that's 100% real. We've had Anna Sonoda on with Tommy. She has a book called Duck, Duck, Groom about how this happens and what to look out for. It's an important book, and it's scary as hell, especially when you're the parent of 3 kids, young kids like I am. So always on the lookout here. Tommy, this is kind of an interesting comment. I don't want to. Victims should have kept DNA evidence to prove assault. There are kits in hospitals. You think? I mean, Tommy, I know you're not an expert in these areas, but you know a lot. Do you think that a guy like Tony Busby could access some of these kits, kind of in what's the word I'm looking for? Like retroactively? Can he go? Are these kits still available? Is what I'm trying to ask.
Very often they keep stuff like that. We hear about cases where an R kit was done in '83, and the cold case file, there wasn't enough usable DNA on there. Well, every 4 or 5 years, what usable DNA means is something completely different. So we've seen a bunch of cases that actually have been solved after the fact by kits like that. So there are kits, definitely. If those 55 people went forward and said, I was assaulted, they probably did a kit on them right there. I would imagine that those kits are probably out there. It really is disgusting, and it's terrifying.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, someone confirmed in the chat that Tony Busby does in fact have a tank on his front lawn. I'm going to Google that. There's got to be a photo of that. Again, he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that's too worried about ruffling feathers. Doc from Abbey Crossing, who helps us behind the scenes and is a good egg. Doctors likely knew the cause and were complicit in covering up DV and SA. No, it just goes so deep, hard to really grasp, but yet not surprising. I mean, Tommy, the question again, we're kind of belaboring it. We'll go a few more minutes and then wrap it up. But I mean, these tentacles like reach around the world. If you picture a globe, I mean, I feel like it's everywhere. It's like a cancer. So many people were involved in so many different ways. How do you, like, it is such a, put it this way, I'm worried about covering the Sarah Boone trial tomorrow at 12:30 because I haven't really been following it closely. How do you go about with 120 victims and all the possible perpetrators and all the possible hotels and the corporations and the farmers? I mean, it seems like an impossible job.
It does seem like it's going to be a very, very difficult job. I would imagine that you're going to have a team of investigators, right, that are banging out these things one at a time. But the kind of money, the booze company that Diddy was in business with, he's no longer in business with anymore. But what that booze company was worth, when you see the billions and billions, and these are huge entities that had a vested interest in this guy not getting caught for stuff. I mean, honestly, I think that's probably, there was a lot of that going around, and these days they don't care anymore. He's not worth protecting.
I mean, that's a great point. That's a great point, because there were big companies backing him, and they needed the product to sell. But now I can guarantee you they're all gonna turn their back on this guy for sure. Tommy, this is your wheelhouse because you spent time behind bars. Should Diddy be put back in unalived watch, direct observation, as they say? By the way, Tommy, walk us through this. This news conference happened live at 2 p.m. Eastern time, which is where the time zone that Diddy is in. When will Diddy find out exactly what was said in this news conference? When is he going to know?
When he meets with his attorney.
Yeah.
Or he's going to hear a deal at the top of the hour on his radio from like the AP feed that says, disgraced mogul, right? Just like 120, and he's going to go, oh shit, But that's the kind of way that he's probably going to get it, because there's no TV in the shoe, right? There's no, the only thing you got's a radio, and he's going to get legal visits. And they're going to have to serve him with those papers. Right. And I would imagine his attorney is going to want to get down there before they slide that under his cell door, because that is the kind of thing that could rock a guy. I mean, that's 120 names. And again, we talked about this last time, but I'm sure he's going through, oh no, I bet that girl's in there, or I bet that guy's in there. And when he hears 9 years old, you got to know he knows who the youngest victim he victimized was, allegedly. If that really happened, he's going to know who that is. I would imagine he's doing bad time, real bad time.
If he's withdrawing from Trank, though, he probably wouldn't care, right? Like he's in agony with that. But yeah.
But he's been in there for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah,
so the first 72 hours would have been absolute hell. What he's going to be dealing with is the inability to sleep at all, right? It really jacks with your sleep. He'll get 5-10 minutes. So you'll never get into any kind of a restful sleep, and that can last 6-7 months, depending on how bad off you are. And look, he's never kicked, right? Everybody said that this guy, allegedly, he's been on this stuff for like 20 years, right? A 20-year run without ever getting off. Most people who are addicted to those kinds of substances go to jail, end up, there are things that they run out of money. There are things that cause them to stop taking it or to slow down their habit. But if you have unlimited money and you have that drug problem, then that's a really frightening proposition.
Blackwood Orr is right. I'll be honest. At first, I had no real interest in covering Diddy, but this is turned into a fascinating case. We're definitely staying on this, and it's going to be a long haul. By the way, though, Tim Jansen, who's a former federal prosecutor and on our show all the time, he said this could go to trial as soon as February, which is kind of crazy. They said the feds move so quickly. And it's
this February?
That's what he said. Yeah, it's crazy. That seems way too soon.
I've never seen anything like that.
That's what that seems very crazy.
Here's my prediction. I think they're going to start trying to do voir dire in either like June or July of next year. That would be my prediction. And the case could drag on for an eternity. I mean, this is going to be a really long, just look at just what happened today, man. 120 new accusations today. It's incredible.
Yeah. Curious Wendy saying Usher was just 10 when he went to Diddy camp. What about this, Tommy? Jay-Z, Ashton probably not sleeping. If other people, this is a big if, not saying a fact, but if, what do you think's happening to those people? I mean, their lives have to be upended and absolutely miserable. Like, what do you think's going on behind the scenes with some of these big name celebrities who could be implicated?
They're living in a hell that very few people will ever know, and that's probably a really good thing. I've told the story before, but they were investigating me for 6 months. I knew they were investigating me, and I was a pissant. I had no social 5 people knew who I was, but putting in all of the facts that anywhere he goes, every person he walks by, every person that sees him looks at him like, oh, that creep. He knows that the entire world is on to what he's doing, and he's probably the biggest story going. I would imagine he's living in hell.
I'm not sure I completely follow Abby's question here, but Tommy, they would serve him directly in the shoe prior to alerting, serve him. That's where I'm lost. Seems that might be a catalyst to an attempt to unalive oneself. Abby's too smart for me. Explain that, Tommy.
So they're going to have to serve him with papers to say you're getting hit with these, right? Some people call it, it's getting served or ad booked, or there's a lot of, but that would be a really good way to get somebody hurt if they were to do that without his attorney. But I would imagine knowing that this press conference was going off at that time, he was probably sitting in a room with Diddy when that press conference went off. They
So
got to protect this guy.
yeah, I
That's
didn't
an
realize that.
investment.
So you actually get served papers behind bars? How does that work?
Absolutely. They'll bring it depending on what you're getting served with. A notary public will come, or whatever the document is. You'll have to sign for it. There'll be a notary. But yeah, absolutely, you get served. So if there's a new case, and it's one of the saddest things to watch happen, right? Because you see guys in there and they're just sort of they're going along and life is good, and that piece of paper comes under the door and it says, "Here's 6 more things you're being charged with," and then they're going to take you and bring you back down to booking and put you through the whole damn process again, which makes 0 sense, right? But they're going to go down and they're going to take pictures and they're going to go do the whole thing all over again. So it's a frustrating process.
From Pretzels and Cornbread, I love the prison / NBC questions. Tommy, are the guards probably taunting Diddy and telling him what just took place and laughing at him? What do you think?
Absolutely. There'll be a couple of guards that just will not be able to, and they won't do it so that it's flagrant, but they'll come by and be like, "Oh, dude, man, tough luck." Like they're that kind of, heard the news, man. What, 120 of them? Boy, tucks, that kind of stuff. Yeah, everybody will. And once the fellas hear about this, forget about it. They'll be having a lot of fun with them.
I have absolutely no idea. This comes from one of my favorites, Black Widow, the Republic of Ireland. She scares me more than the COE or my mom. I hope Diddy gets bread soda on his wing wang is what I think that is. Do you happen to know what bread soda is, Tommy? Because I don't.
I do not, and but I should probably find out. Maybe shoot my girlfriend a text. Tell her to keep that away, because it doesn't sound like it's something you want on there. I got that much.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked this question, Tommy. A couple more minutes. I'm having fun with Tommy. You're cool, right, Tommy?
Yeah.
Just a couple more minutes. Tommy, do you think the arrest of New York City Mayor Eric Adams and his time in Turkey has anything to do with Diddy? I haven't heard any connections. Tommy, have you?
No. So the Diddy case,
By the way, other than the mayor giving him a key to the city last year.
a year ago to the day of his arrest. I honestly, I don't see anything in between, and we're really Department of Homeland Security is who's handling Diddy's case, and the FBI exclusively is handling, I think, the mayor. I don't see any connection. I'm sure they were at parties together, but if we go down that rabbit hole, I think everybody has attended a party at one time or another.
From TC, how often can Diddy receive personal visits and meet with his attorney?
Personal visits, they do it on a point system. You're allowed, let's say, I don't know what the points are anymore, but let's say you get 10 of them. To visit somebody on a Monday is 1 point. To visit somebody on a weekend, like Saturday or Sunday, is 2 points. So over the course of the month, if you run out of your 10, then you're done. But you've got to. It's a pretty silly system. As far as the attorneys go, no, the attorneys can show up whenever they want, and they can stay as long as they want. If the attorneys wanted to show up at 4 a.m., they're going to let them in. That whole I want to talk to my client is sacrosanct. They do not mess with that in any way, shape, or form. I'll give them credit for that. They definitely will let you talk to your lawyer.
How about this? When would we expect, because Cicada says a new mugshot should cue us in on his condition. When would we get a new Diddy mugshot?
So I'm surprised that stuff's not getting leaked, right? Because there would have already been the next photo. That's not the photo that they would have put on his ID, and he has an ID. He's got it looks like a credit card. It's red, and it's got a series of numbers on it, which are going to be his prison number forever, right? So, and it's like 4 numbers, and then there's a dash and 3 digits, and the 3 digits say what region, what part of the country you're from, and then the 5 is your registration number. And yeah, they probably already took that picture. I'm surprised that we did not find out or see it leaked, because they're really bad at it.
A final question here for Tommy from Purple Coconut. How did Tommy know he was being investigated? How did you know?
Honestly, they did not do a very good job with me. My phone was tapped, but it was only tapped when I called one person, right? It didn't, and it sounded so much different when I called him that it was hysterically funny. Like he would pick up the phone and it would go chick, like these three loud clicks, just so bad. And every time I pulled out of the driveway, one of three different cars magically ended up behind me within about 3 or 4 minutes. And they didn't go away. They just never went away. So, and I knew it was coming.
From Coffee First, final question. I lied about the last one being the final question. Rumor says he's refusing to eat. I've heard different things. I've heard he's actually kind of upbeat now, according to his lawyer, at least. Tommy, I think you explained this last night that does the jail care if he starves? They will put a feeding tube into his nose after 3 days, you said?
It used to be 9 meals. Now that's when I was in there, so I don't know what it is because they do kind of change this, those things up. But they're not going to let you starve to death. I promise you that. They will absolutely intervene. But what I think when he first got there, people, that first 14 days, if he was kicking those 2 substances at the same time, xylazine and a really heavy, because tranq is the 2 mixed. So he had a really hard opiate and a really hard tranquilizer. Coming off of those, you probably wouldn't eat for the first 14 days much anyway. Anything you eat's going to come back up for at least the first 7. So, yeah, it might have just been that he could not eat, not that he wasn't eating, that he just did not want to.
Exactly. A final super chat here. Wendy W. Heals my heart to see SA victims getting respect and help. It wasn't always that way. And this is what I'm talking about. This could change the conversation and the way SA victims are looked at, and certainly the way celebrities are looked at in Hollywood. Kind of crazy, this news conference. So for those of you who have missed it, Tony Busby, who is the head of a large law firm in Houston, had a news conference which began at 2 p.m. Eastern time, where he said that he has 120 new people coming forward with civil lawsuits against Sean Diddy Combs, and that they would start filing those cases in 30 days with one of the victims as young as 9 years old. So we will be back tonight. That's our job, Sakata, answering your questions. We'll be back tonight, 7 o'clock. Tommy's coming back. Dr. John Delatorre, psychologist, and we've got a Miami-based criminal defense attorney who's going to be joining us as well, a new best guest. So I'm excited for the 7 o'clock show. And again, tomorrow, 12:30 p.m., Sarah Boone. If you like the show, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Please share with friends. Love you, America. Love you, Arizona. Love you, Houston, Texas. Love you, everybody. And justice for all of these Diddy victims.